welcome back to What the Fertility. Today we have Erin Sarris on with us today. She is a Chicago-based writer and author of Cupcakes Everywhere, One Sweet Tale of Overcoming Infertility. We are so excited that you're on with us and to share your whole infertility journey as well as your book. And what's really cool and amazing what you do is you actually donate a portion of your royalties from the book to the National Infertility Association, which is amazing. And so we're so excited that you're on and just to chat with you today.
Thank you. I cannot think of a better way to spend my morning. I'm really happy to be here.
Oh,
We're so happy to, I read your book. It's incredible. Can't wait for everybody else to get an insight into it and hopefully purchase a copy. But obviously your book came from your own experience that started what, how many years ago? I hear you say 2017 when we jumped on. So a while.
I mean, it's almost kind of funny how long ago it's been now. And like, I've definitely asked myself a couple times, like, why am I doing this now? Like, why am I going back into this? Why am I ripping off this scab on this like deep wound that like was so painful for so many years? But I think that I'm finally getting to a point where I'm able to like step back and really observe like what happened, what those years entailed, truly how I felt about it. And then like I'm starting to kind of make sense of it in my own way. But it was a long time ago. So I started fertility treatments in I think 2013 or 2014. And we came about it kind of a weird way because my husband and I got married very young, spent the first part of our marriage not thinking about family planning whatsoever. But I was one of those fertility awareness method folks who like wasn't on the pill. I would take my temperature, know my days, and like I was very diligent about it at first.
Even back then, like, how did you even
scared.
like, what made you do that?
Like I mean the internet still obviously I've always been like huge on internet forums. Like when I got married, I was spent like the whole day at work on like
I love
the
it.
not.com. Yes, I still have like one of my best friends is still from that. And a lot of other very close friends as well.
That's
But
amazing.
I just heard about Taking Charge of Your Fertility, the book. So I ordered the book, probably went to like Barnes and Noble actually, got
Yeah.
it, learned about it. And then that was kind of our birth control for the first several years of our marriage. And so we were actively avoiding pregnancy at that time. And then as the years went on, like, coming up on our 30s, I was like, oh, I wouldn't really like care if we got pregnant right now, but I'm not, seeking it out. So I'm just going to kind of like forget about this whole fertility awareness method thing. And then that was like a couple years and still we were having a lot of fun. So I was just like, I'm just, hanging out in this awkward middle space right now where if it's time for us to start our family, awesome. If it's not, like that's cool too. But then it got to a point where I was just like, okay, it's clearly something's wrong here. So I started with my OB, I think like a lot of people do. And we started with just, basic testing, which showed that everything was fine. Not great, but like adequate enough for like a Clomid cycle. That didn't work. Clomid IUI, that didn't work. And so then we were like, if we're going to do these IUIs, which are like out of pocket, we should probably get a real expert to like give us the full workup.
So you were doing like IUIs with your OB.
Yes, exactly. And
Wow.
we just like, we had no idea. Like,
Yeah.
just clueless. I mean, I should have known from all of my like internet research that that was not like the best idea for us. But yeah, so then we went to a proper fertility clinic. This is when we lived in Las Vegas at the time. And so then we got the full workup, and there were no detectable issues with me, but my husband showed very severe male factor infertility. So they were like, you shouldn't have even been doing those IUIs given the
Right.
sample that we're looking at right now. Like, it's important that you go straight to IVF if having a family is for you. So hemmed and hawed about it. I did not want to do IVF. Like at the time, I was this crunchy yoga teacher, like
Well, as you say, if you're like fertility awareness
Yes.
in 2013,
yes,
yeah.
like leaf
So
eating person who just like, I would not even want, I still am a little bit like this. Like, I don't even want to take an aspirin when I have a headache. Like, just, I don't know. It's really weird, but that's just how I am. And so the
Oh, I
idea
totally
of
get it.
IVF was just like devastating to me, mostly for like to think about all of the different drugs that you put in your body. Not as much like the egg retrieval or like any of the
like a
other stuff that
medicine.
happens, but like it's like the super ovulation drugs.
Oh yeah. That really nobody's like really studied that for that long of a time
Yes.
period. And I think like Amanda probably more so than me are definitely also like crunchy granola type people. But I think I was in such a mindset where I was just like, I need the baby. I don't care if like it's just gonna
Yes.
give me like long-term chronic effects. But when you come out of it, like you were saying earlier in the podcast, you can look back and be like, huh, maybe I
I
should have
know.
thought about that decision a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah. And there was no other decision, like clearly, because every month that went on, it got worse and worse. And I was just like, okay, well, I guess like if I want to, have a chance of being, a mother and having a pregnancy like in my body, I need to do IVF. And so we did IVF at that clinic in Las Vegas, and it was not successful at all. None of our embryos made it. Actually, like I did fine with like the drugs, like the IVF part. Like I didn't get overstimulated or like I didn't even really have like that crazy side effects other than everyone, I think, their first cycle of IVF has to overcome a big learning curve of learning to do all those injections and just like the emotional stress, financial stress, all of that. But so like we were feeling pretty good when we got to our transfer. Like we were like, oh, like how many embryos are we going to get? Like this is so exciting. And none of our embryos made it. Like they all completely fizzled out in the dish. And they were like, we don't even recommend transferring any of these. They're so bad. Like your cycle's over. And
Wow. So how many years from 2013, 14 to that first IVF?
so that was late 2014. So like
Okay.
almost 2 years.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, so that was a big setback and just like, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine just like devastating because I was just under the impression that everybody gets a transfer and that's not the case at
And you,
all.
right. And you like go into IVF like, okay, this isn't my top choice, but it's kind of my only
Right.
choice. Well, now when it's not working, now what?
I know. Yeah. So that was like a new like mental low, I think. And then we decided after that, like, because we thought we were going to do IVF one time, LOL, like not
We're
at
all
all.
laughing. Yeah. Not at you, with you.
Yes. So we were like, okay, well, I guess they seem to think that my trigger shot was the reason why my eggs were immature and then they didn't fertilize correctly and thus didn't grow to become blastocysts correctly. So they were like, you should really try it again. Like you'll probably have better results. And we were just like, okay, I guess we're going to try it again. But we're both from Chicago. And so we always knew that like if we were going to get serious about having a family, we needed to move back to Chicago. And we decided to come back to Chicago to go to a clinic, Fertility Centers of Illinois, where I had a couple friends who had had success and we had a really good feeling about our doctor, Dr. Kaplan, and it just seemed like a better fit for us. So we moved from Las Vegas to come home to do IVF and,
Wow.
for other reasons too, but that was like the predominant one to come home to do that. And then that began our next IVF. And that one was a lot more straightforward. I had a bigger trigger shot. We actually had some embryos to freeze from that. I got to take the summer off and just like kind of get my mind and body together again after going through that IVF. And then we transferred one of our embryos in the fall of 2014. Oh gosh, I'm all confused now. I think that was 2015. Yes, I'm sorry. It was fall of 2015. And then that was a miscarriage. It was a blighted ovum. So I thought I was pregnant. And
Ugh.
then we showed up for the ultrasound and it's like, we see this sac, but there's nothing in there. And
That's
like
so
they
hard.
kept being like, well, it could be that you're just behind. And I was like,
That you're
it's not behind. We know the
early. Yeah.
exact date that I am.
So I had a blighted ovum with our third loss, and to your
Oh
point,
gosh.
I've never understood how that happens with IVF, because you're like, you put
Yeah.
an embryo in my body, where did it go?
Yeah, I know. And the sac develops, like the sac was getting bigger,
Yeah.
but the embryo itself just like never
I guess
took.
they say like in a blighted ovum, it like absorbs, I don't, into your body.
Yeah.
Like it's not growing. It doesn't really, yeah, anyways,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for your loss. That's
Thank
difficult.
you. Likewise. I mean, it was tough. And just the way that it happened too, like if there's like a theme, I think, like throughout a lot of my infertility treatments is like false hope, overconfidence on my part, huge crash at the end. Like
Right.
just
What do they say? Like the hated words, cautiously optimistic. Like they
yeah,
always tell people.
yeah,
And I'm like, no, I want to be fully optimistic.
yeah.
You want to be cautious.
Yeah. So that was a big setback emotionally, and I was not doing well at that point. So we took a couple of months off from fertility treatments. Like it was to the point where I wasn't like wanting to go to family functions. Like I skipped Thanksgiving because I was like, I just can't be around other people right now. Like this isn't going to go well for me. I'm going to depress everybody by showing up, and everyone's going to give me that look, the one where it's just like,
Right. Pity.
yeah.
Yeah. And at that time, had you shared with your family? I mean, you guys made this huge move. So I'm
Yes.
assuming.
Yes. I wasn't sharing I like on social media. And back then, like Instagram wasn't the way that it is now. Like that would have been so like shocking, I think, for people to like post all of the details on their cycle. That type of stuff was more in like forums, I think, at that time, like and
Right.
anonymously. So I think it's so cool actually, like, and freaking brave how people are just sharing like their personal stories before they've been resolved yet, like just
Right.
sharing in real time and like being vulnerable and putting themselves out there. I don't know like if I would have been able to do that at that time, but I was sharing with our like family and our close friends. So then I went heavy into reproductive immunology and gave like all the vials and went to this specialist out in the burbs here in Chicago that, I mean, actually uncovered some really interesting things about my body and its intricacies. So then I was like put on a new protocol with blood thinners and like steroids and stuff. So that was in preparation for our next frozen embryo transfer, which was in the summer of 2016. And that was 2 embryos, and they just didn't do anything. Like that was just negative. Like
Really?
after all of that, and we didn't test our embryos. Like it wasn't recommended for us. So I don't know, but they looked good. And then after all of that, they just didn't take. And that was when we were kind of at a crossroads, like, all right, like if it's
Well,
not
for
going to work,
those, yeah, I was
yeah,
gonna say,
like,
for those that don't know reproductive immunology, like that is like the big, big guns of, like you say, I gave all the
yeah.
vials. I mean, isn't it like 20 plus vials of?
I think it was almost 20. I don't know if the first number was a 2, but like it was in the teens for sure. And I just like my blood stopped going into the catheter. Like I was just like, lady, you're not getting any more. Like I
It's
am
so
tapped out.
much. I was
Oh.
like, so like with reoccurrent miscarriage, that's really where a lot of physicians kind of, well, physicians they're not sold on reproductive immunology.
Yes, I
A lot.
know. Very
So
controversial.
it's so controversial, but I have friends, we've had girls on the podcast that have had wild success with it. And I know
Yeah.
we haven't heard the end of your
Yes.
story, but it was a crossroads for me. And it was just so overwhelming because it
Yeah.
is, to your point, it is like a very holistic look at your body,
Yeah.
and it's just a lot. So I wanted to give you credit for even doing that. And then just the reality of it not working even after that, you're like, oh my gosh, I just ran 7 marathons and now what?
Well, it was like, I mean, yeah, to your point, like it was like learning a new language after already learning another language. Like you really, like if you're going to do IVF, as everyone who's done it knows, you have to really just like immerse yourself, and it's so consuming, and you need to learn like what the doctor's doing and also why they're doing what they're doing. And just it's so like cerebral in a way. But then when you add something like the immunology component on top of it, like it's just, yeah, it was a lot. And so for that not to work, like that was probably the lowest, where I was just like, I really need to like take a look at my life right now and think about like our plan B, because I'm not going to be able to put myself through this forever. And like, I think that's really important. And like, I love the conversation. Well, not love, that's the wrong word, but I appreciate the conversation that like IVF doesn't always work. And like a lot of the times the success stories, like myself, are overrepresented. And I, you know, at some point, people for their own sanity, for whatever reasons, like need to quit. And it takes a lot of bravery to do that as well, to quit. And I was really like at that crossroads. And so for the last transfer, again, took a couple of months off, and I just was into like, you know, F it mode. I was like, this probably isn't going to work. I'm going to do it my way. I'm doing a natural cycle. I'm not going to do all these like whatever it was called to like, you know, shut down your
The
menstrual
priming
cycle.
or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, they can just pop them in. And then I'm still going to do the blood thinners because I felt like there was benefit in that from the reproductive immunologist. And then I just like, yeah, focused on staying happy and like doing things that made me feel like a human being and not like a medical experiment like I had been for the last couple years. And that's where my daughters came from, who are about to be 7 next month.
Wow. And if you didn't catch the S there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, twins. Yeah. So those were our last 2 embryos. And it's so crazy because they were frozen in the same straws. None of the other ones were. They were all frozen individually. And so for the previous IVF, they had to like, you know, take 2 straws, thaw them and prepare them for transfer. But for my daughters, I don't know why they froze them in the same straw, and I can't get an answer. Like
Why is
nobody
that
knows.
so cute?
I know, it's so cute. And I tell them, I'm like, guys, you were meant to be together. Like you needed to come as a pair. I don't know why, but like you were frozen in the same straw. I'm like, get emotional. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why the embryologist like decided to do that, but he did. And I'm very thankful for that.
That's
I love that
beautiful.
so much. That's so sweet. Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
amazing. Especially after all of that, you know,
Yeah.
and then twins. Were you guys like even on the radar for like, well, obviously you transferred too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean, after so many like failures, I was like, there's no way they're both gonna stick when I found out that I was pregnant. Although my beta was really strong, like it was like in the 200s or something. And so I was like, well, maybe like, you know, it could be twins. And then we actually found out that we were having twins on Halloween. And it was so exciting, but we knew we couldn't stay in our condo at that point. So we started like driving around. We're like, we need to get out of this condo. We need to get a new car. Like we're going straight to a family of 4.
Yeah, that's so cool. And another thing I picked up from your story, so blood thinners, do you remember so that was actually where my daughter kind of, I guess, would say success. We did Lovenox against.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was like
Against,
generic. It wasn't the proper.
oh yeah. I don't think mine was either.
But
Yeah.
yes, and I took that until I went into preterm labor at 28 weeks. And then they're like, you need to get off these blood thinners. Like you could give birth at any time.
And did you have a diagnose? If a physician's listening, they probably want to like just cringe at what we're talking about. But did you have a diagnosis of any blood clotting disorder, or was it just like?
I have MTHFR, one of those mutations, which I guess, you know, makes your blood not flow as freely or puts you at greater risk for clots. So I actually still take a supplement today, which I found out from that experience to like bring my homocysteine levels down, which
So that's all immunology talk, right?
Yeah.
Even if you read, it starts with an egg, which is probably like, I know you referenced a book that you got in like 2013, 14. I feel like the generation that started this in 2019, 2020, it's like, it starts with an egg was like that everybody went to. And I call it the mother gene, but I think it's just because I'm reading it fast, but it's MTH, what is it?
MTHFR. Like it sounds very close to a cuss word.
Right. Which it should be. But REIs, like a typical workup, they will not test it. I
Yeah.
have asked to be tested numerous times. They wouldn't test it, but a lot of women have it, and a lot of women with recurrent loss end up having it. But
Yeah.
anyways, that's so interesting. I actually don't have a diagnosed blood clotting disorder. I was tested like 14 times over and over
Yeah.
again with every
Yeah.
loss. But my daughter, I just said, I'm getting Lovenox, and
Yeah.
you can call me crazy, but I'd like to have
Who
it.
cares?
And that
Exactly.
was the only pregnancy I did Lovenox for and had a live birth.
I mean, there's just something about it. I don't know. And that and those ultrasound machines, like where they can test the blood flow, like with the Doppler and stuff, like
Yeah.
going, making sure that all of the arterial highways or whatever are going where they need to go. That machine
Yeah.
was so crazy. And they
Yeah.
were very nice too, because I still continue to see them after I, was pregnant with the girls, and they would give me so many ultrasounds. Like they would just be like, come on in, girl. If
Oh
you
yeah.
want one, you got one. And so that was really, really nice. Just to have
That's
that
so
personal, like, I feel like at the fertility clinics, you do get so like
sweet.
spoiled in a way with attention that other medical practices cannot replicate.
It's like that bittersweet moment when you graduate, right? And
Yeah.
like, I know, Amanda, you're about to go through it again, but it's like, I'm so excited to get to 9, 10 weeks and I get to go to a regular OB, and then you get there and
Yeah.
you're like, wait, what? I'm
Yeah.
not treated like
You're
a
like, I'm not
brat.
special.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
now this is just like a normal pregnancy. What do you mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, like just
yeah.
get in line, take a ticket. You
Yeah.
have no status here.
Absolutely. So you have your twins, but you have 3 kids, right?
I do, yes. So this is wild. I feel like I've been on both ends of the spectrum of having no control over my like family planning. So when the girls were 18 months, I felt like I was just kind of getting my life and my like self, my mental health back together. And I didn't even realize that my period was late for a couple weeks. And I called my OB and I was like, this can't be real. Like, there's no way I'm pregnant. We were given a 1% chance. This doesn't make logical sense. Like, I don't
I just
understand how
went
this is
through
happening.
all of this for so many
Yes.
years.
Yes, for years. And he was like, come on in on Monday. I'll sneak you in. We can see what's going on. Because I had gotten a positive pregnancy test. And so, sure enough, my son was probably like 6 weeks in one day or something. So, like, the first day, you could like even see like a flicker of a heartbeat. And he just like popped right up on the screen. And it was just so unbelievable
That's so
that stuff happens in real life. And I honestly, like, I do feel like very conflicted talking about this book. And I don't know, like, if anyone else feels this way too, but I'm just like, I'm the person that's really annoying that has the like, oh my God, what a surprise. I'm pregnant with a spontaneous,
I can relate to you. I think I just posted a reel about this, but like I can relate to you so much because I did all of that. We've had 6 miscarriages. I have unexplained infertility. We went through the adoption process that I shared on social
Yeah.
media. I share in the morning that we went live and we're so excited. And that night I spontaneously got pregnant with my daughter. So like I totally,
Yeah.
everybody's like, see, when people, and they use me of like, when you're going to adopt, then you're going to get pregnant. I'm like, no, please do not say that. That is the worst thing that you could ever say. So I totally relate.
Oh
Yeah. But I mean, also like that's my story too. And it's wild and unbelievable. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm so thankful for it because it was everything that the girl's pregnancy wasn't. Like it was easy. The pregnancy was a singleton. It was very uncomplicated and straightforward. I had a great delivery with him. He was an easy baby and a good like breastfeeder. So like it was very healing for me in a way to get to experience that just because I felt like by the time that the girls, like the twins were in my arms finally, I just felt like I had gotten my ass kicked like one of those boxers that you
As you
see like
did.
with the black eyes and stuff. And so it was nice to experience something more like what the general population
That's
would
beautiful.
with him. So
So he's
I always
what,
say like,
5?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say he's 5.
He'll be 5 in this summer. He's still 4, and nobody loves you like a 4-year-old boy. He is so sweet.
Literally the sweetest. Oh, that's amazing. Well, congratulations. 3 kids.
I know. Yeah. It's
Okay, and then so then where did the book, how did that kind of then happen? Like where was that from?
so this actually goes back to the way that I announced my pregnancy with my son, because I just was feeling all of that ambivalence about announcing the pregnancy, especially since I still had so many friends that went through infertility. And like, as you know, years later, pregnancy announcements can make you feel weird. Like even now, like one will hit me where I'm just like, oh wow, that person spaced out their family perfectly 2 years apart. Like, must
Yep.
be nice.
Me too.
So like
Yeah.
there's just things like that where I just wanted to be like very careful about how I shared the news, but also it's so like amazing and such a blessing that I'm happy about it and I want to share it. So I just started like writing a post to post on Instagram and also share with my coworkers. I worked with colleagues in Georgia at the time, so I didn't see them every day. So like an email was the most appropriate way to announce that news after I had individually told everyone. But I said like, I basically I don't have words to share what it's like to get pregnant spontaneously after years and years of infertility. So let me just tell you a story about cupcakes. And I said something like, you know, when you want a cupcake, you start to notice that everybody else around the world or around your life has one. And they're everywhere you turn, everyone has one. But in order for you to bake one, you have to go to this sad bakery where you sit around for years, spend tons of money, wonder if you're even going to get a cupcake in the end, while other people around you just make it look so easy and straightforward. But now here I am 2 years later, and somebody's telling me that I don't have to go to that sad bakery. I can just bake a cupcake at home. And it was written like a little bit more eloquently than what I'm like describing right now. But like that was just the metaphor I used. Like I had to go through this experience, and now like something that I cried over and struggled for years and like shook my fist at the sky about just fell in my lap, and it feels great, but also kind of just like weird too. And I'm nervous about having a third kid when I can, you know, I'm on the brink sometimes of like the 2 18-month-olds
Yeah.
that I currently have. So like I just wanted to be really honest with like the people in my life about where I was at with my family at the time. And so that was like the way that I announced my pregnancy. And then when the kids were all a little bit older, I started reading them books, and I just wanted to share with them like our family's story and just kind of help them understand where they came from and what the experience was like, and put it in terms that they can understand or maybe relate to. Because I think that kids like don't necessarily get it why a pair of adults or a single adult or any adult would want a baby, but I think that they do understand like, ooh, a cupcake. Like
Yeah.
everybody else has one of those. They're so sweet. They make life sweet, but why don't I get one? So like I think it's a book about infertility for sure, but it's also a book about empathy for other people and the different scenarios that they might be in. And so I was doing a lot of reading of children's books at the time, having like, 2-year-old twins or 2.5-year-old twins. And so I wrote the book in like 20 minutes, 30 minutes tops. Like it came together so fast. Like it almost just like it like poured out of me. And it was a lot because I was immersed in those children's books all the time. And I'm a writer and an editor for work. So I find like that's kind of what I do every day is like match a style of,
Yeah. Because
what I'm
when you
wanting.
read the book, it's almost like poetry in a sense. Like I feel like if you pulled all that out and just like put it on paper, I could see it like it's a really beautiful poem. But it's really great. You described it wonderfully. I think like my favorite part was when you're like, we bought all the ingredients at the store, even we bought
Yeah.
sprinkles, because it's like, and just through those words, you can resonate as somebody that's gone through infertility, where you're like, we went 200% in for the first
Yeah.
try and it
Yeah.
still didn't work. And so you just did such a great job of like adding really little pieces to the metaphor that then like you can totally relate to something different through infertility. I loved it. I'm so excited that it's available.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I wanted it to be like I've done a lot of thinking. I'm like, who is this book for? Because when you put it like on Amazon and stuff, you have to like categorize it. Like, is it a kid's book or is it an adult's book? And they won't let you cross categories. So that's been a little limiting in a way. But I think I did write it more for the parents. Like, if I had to pick who's it for, I would say the parents. And of course, it's a book that I hope that the whole family will get something out of in their own way. And like, you know, the illustrations are so like comprehensive. Like, I feel like that was one thing that I knew I wanted, and why I love our illustrator Bessa, because I was like, I want every piece of the page covered with like cupcakes, just to make it like so clear how overwhelming the world is as an infertile person, and just how everywhere you turn there's like
And
baby.
you have like somebody holding like 5 cupcakes and you're like,
Yes.
and they even have 5 and I can't even have
Yeah.
1 cupcake. It's
Yeah.
kind of like Bluey, or like how Disney does, where like the writings for the parents and the
Yeah.
storyline is really like something that you can, you know, the whole family can enjoy and get something out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. That would be the tallest compliment in this house, a comparison to Bluey.
Right.
And
I'm like same, but I don't know if our listeners have listened to Bluey just yet. But like I
Yeah.
agree. You can listen as an adult and you're like, huh, that was a really great tell.
Yeah.
yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. And
So
then,
where can people purchase your book from?
so they can purchase it at www.cupcakeseverywhere.com, and then on online booksellers like Amazon.
Well, thank you so much, Erin, for being on. We're so excited to share your book, share your story, and we'll tag the website of the book. Do you on social media have any social media that you'd want to share related to the book, or even yourself?
Yeah, so my author account is Erin Sarris Writes. So just my full name and then the word writes afterwards.
Awesome. We'll link it in the show notes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Hope you guys have a nice one.